Okay, getting back to finishing up this section 1.8 on conversion charts. A few more examples for you and some other ideas that you might want to explore as you're going through this. Look, there's nothing hard about this. I realize that you know you're just following these charts and you're going with the arrow and you multiply, you go against the arrow and you divide. You know, if you're very careful as you go through this, you know, you should be able to make these conversions very easily. There's a couple more examples in the textbook, and I thought maybe we would, you know, look at maybe one or two more of these. So if we look at, let's see, let's go back to the figures and let me switch over here to my iPad again. Get this mirrored in, get rid of that screen and that screen. And so example 1-1 says that we want to convert 2.5 yards to millimeters. Okay, so we're right here on our chart. We're at 2.5 yards on our chart, and we want to end up down here at millimeters. This is where we want to end up, is at that point there. Okay, so to get there, we're going to have 2.5 yards. To go from yards to inches, we're going to multiply by 36. And then to get from inches to millimeters, we're going to multiply again by 25.4. This problem's worked out for you in the textbook, but it's 2.5 yards times 36 times 25.4. And again, we're going to end up there at millimeters. We go through this, we punch it into our calculator, and we come out with the number 2,286 millimeters. Okay. Again, here's some of this metric prefixes used here, of course, you know. This is 1,000th of a meter. And of course, a meter is one of our base units that we think about. Get rid of these. There's another example, which is example 1.2. 1.2 is a little more involved. It says I have 2,000 meters, and I want to go from meters to miles. Okay. Well, really, I mean, this is a good example to see the use of the divide and the multiply. Now, you may notice in the background, I've got some partners in crime here, and I'll show you a picture of these guys at some point. That's my two cats, and at this hour, for some reason, they like to wrestle. But anyway, if I'm working example 1-2, and I'm going to convert 2,000 meters to miles, what I'm going to do first is take meters and divide by 1.0936. So I'm 2,000 divided by 1.093, oops, 936, okay, and that is our first number. Then that number is, after that answer, I'm going to divide, I'm going to divide again by this number, and that will get me to miles. So I'll take that answer, divide by 1,760, and that will leave me at the miles unit. And so he shows us that calculation. We punch this into our calculator, and 2,000 meters comes out to equal 1 point, didn't look good, that doesn't look like a 1. Let's see if this looks like a 1. Here we go, 1.24 miles would be our answer for that. Okay, let's get rid of these. We'll look at one more here, one more example using a different chart. then this might be something we're a little less familiar with. But let's say that we're looking at the next chart here, and this chart is figure 1.2 on our page 9, and it is a conversion chart for energy, okay? Energy, something that we probably hadn't used a lot of yet, but we're going to use a lot of it in this class. And as you can see at the very top is a kiloton of TNT, has a certain amount of energy, and we can convert that to kilowatt hours. We got megajoules, we got BTUs, a lot of things that we're sort of familiar with. One thing I like to point out to you, look at this. A joule is the same thing as a Newton meter, because to go from 1 joule to 1 Newton meter, you just multiply by 1. Any number by itself times itself is 1. A Newton meter is also equal to a watt second, okay? So all of those actually end up equaling the same thing. But for this particular example, he says I have 777 calories. So I'm right here. I got 777 calories, and I want to convert that to kilowatt hours. So that is here. So what's the shortest path to that? Well, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to take 777. I'm going to multiply it by 4.184. I'm going to divide it by 1,000. I'm going to take that number and divide it by 1,000 to get to here. And then I'll take that answer and divide that by 3.6, and that will end up as kilowatt hours. So looking at this problem, I'll try to write it down through here, look at that process. 777 times 4.184. And then that answer is divided by 1,000. And then that answer would be divided by 1,000. And then that answer would be divided by 3.6. So as I look at a problem like this, I think the hardest part of that is being strict and precise and keeping up with these numbers as you process them through your calculator. And he comes up with an answer there at the end of this thing. It says 9.03 times 10 to the negative 4 kilowatt hours. And hopefully maybe you learned in ELC 131 that this 10 to the 4th, it's not in engineering notation, is it? But we could change it to that if it asks us to do that. But anyway, just another example of using these conversion charts. And then one other thing, let's see if I can show you this, and then we'll leave this behind, because like I said, I don't think it's hard at all. I just think it's interesting, the way that this works. But here's another chart. It's a little more complex, isn't it? This is one of his conversion charts for length. And at the very top of this is the parsec, which you may have heard of, I don't know, Star Wars or Star Trek or whatever. And then a parsec is equal to 3.26163 light years. But anyway, we can go from light years down to something called a French foot, to some of these surveying terms, that old surveying terms like the link. Here's some units, the furlong, engineer's chain. So some of these, you know, more archaic, not used units anymore, you know, they're still shown here in these conversion charts. Here's some other things. I think, you know, nautical mile, you know, we hear that when we talk about travel in the ocean. You know, you talk about nautical miles, so forth and so on. But anyway, you know, these conversion charts can become rather complex there, as you can see from these charts. But anyway, I'll stop there, let you read. If you've run into any questions or problems when you're working some of these examples that I'm going to assign to you, of course, you can always get in touch with me about that. Stop the share, stop the recording.